Abdulkader Alguneid was born in Yemen, a poor Islamic country which sits in a premier economic and geographic region of the Middle East. Yemen sits south of Saudi Arabia and in control of a waterway in which most of the world's energy supply must travel for export around the world. Despite such potential, Yemen is a nation in which more than half of the population lives in poverty and bears all the hallmarks of a developing country. Abdulkader Alguneid, however, was smart. He worked hard in school and was able to travel abroad to study medicine and see the world. When he graduated from medical school in Cairo, near the top of his class, Dr. Alguneid could have chosen to practice at any of the finest medical centers in the world, but he knew where he wanted to go.
Oh, it's my home. I had so many chances, opportunities to be in other places, including the US, but I wanted to be at home.
The doctor returned home in 1973 to practice medicine and become a community leader in Taz. As a world-class physician, he knew the best way to treat disease is to prevent disease. So as a top civic leader, he set about to build clean drinking water, drainage, and sewer systems to save lives in his hometown. Dr. Alguneid saw the promise of Yemen and worked diligently to try and help his homeland live up to that promise. However, as hard as he worked for progress, competing powers, backed by violent extremists and radicals associated with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, began a decade-long assault on the elected leadership in Yemen who wanted nothing more than for Yemen to live up to its immense promise. The Iranian-backed rebel Houthis, whose lust for power and control over Yemen was far greater than the hopes of the Yemeni people, seized control of the northern cities of Yemen. What was once struggling but stable turned into radical chaos and civil war as the elected leadership was outcast and overthrown. Dr. Alguneid during this time discovered social media, and as he has done his entire life, he tried to tell the real story of what was going on in his homeland, this time on Twitter. Even before the Arab Spring, Dr. Alguneid gained a large and popular Twitter audience in Yemen, and because he was tweeting in English, around the world.
I discovered Twitter from this process, and I started to make adventures on Twitter. There was no one single one in Arabic in it, so I had to do it in English. And one day or 2 days later, I learned on my own the hashtag thing. So by doing the hashtag Yemen, I had 100, 200 followers every day. And they were just thirsty to listen to someone from Yemen. So I was almost the first and the only news in English to the world.
And one day, that following drew the Houthi terrorists to his home.
It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My wife came to me and said, Abdulkader, there are armed Houthis in our Porsche. They twisted my arms and dragged me out, barefooted. They put me in their car. They went me up the mountain and hid me in a place for a while, for 2 hours. Then they came back when it was dark and took me to a place near the airport. But before that, they handcuffed me and blindfolded me. And I think it was about 7 o'clock by that time. I was interrogated by 2 Houthis from 7 to midnight, 5 hours. My face to the wall, my hands handcuffed to my back, blindfolded, and interrogated.
For 300 days, he was moved from one hidden location to the next. As a physician, he was forced to treat other prisoners from the torture they received at the hands of the Houthis. There's one particular prisoner who is still in custody to this day.
On my 7th day, I was introduced into a cell, and once I was in it, there was someone called Jamal al-Ma'mari. Jamal al-Ma'mari, once he knew that I am a doctor, he cried, he shouted happily. He had a problem, but he didn't know what it is. Okay, I examined him. When I examined him, I found him paralyzed, without him knowing that he is paralyzed.
After 300 days of captivity by the terrorist Houthis, who are backed by the nation of Iran, Dr. Alguneid was set free. He lives in an exile of sorts in Canada, where he is telling his story and pleading with those around the world to not forget his nation and for the world community to help in the fight for the duly elected government in Yemen. No matter how difficult his fight, he says it is worth it to leave a lasting legacy for his grandson.
Now, my hope is to make a place that is safe, that my grandsons can travel everywhere in the world, and when they show passport of Yemen, they are respected. And respected because they did well. They worked hard and they prospered and they contributed to the human cause. I want my grandson to be proud of me, because I want to give him a better Yemen.